Welcome everyone. This video, I'm going to talk a little bit about Mad Mini Monsters and Tomland Monsters of Legend Wave 2. And this is going to be a collaboration video with Brian of Toy Ventures. So first off, I want to thank everybody. The whole team wants to thank everyone for the support that you guys did throughout the campaign. We unlocked all 6 Lincoln monsters, which was amazing. And we also unlocked all 6 Monsters of Legend with glowing heads and hands and feet. We also, in addition to that, unlocked 2 additional figures in the form of the Reaper and in the form of the Ghostly Spectre, which was incredible. The tail end stuff for us was unlocking the Reanimator as well as the playset, which we did. And when it came to looking at new stuff, all this stuff is developed months ahead of time. So like I might have done these 6 months ago, and now it was looking at new possibilities, and the Mad Monsters came up in conversation. I had originally done one years ago with Monolith, and I had the head, and I was very happy with the way that came out, so it became something that I looked into doing the additional heads and see if they would fit with the Monster Maker collection system of swapping arms and legs and heads and hands. So it was taking those sculpts, it was doing a paint over of that to see how close I could get to the style of the original Mego Mad Monsters, and then outfitting additional pieces such as the fur chest piece and the wrist cuffs. And then looking at the artwork that was done at the time, which was the Morrow artwork, which was absolutely phenomenal. And then repainting after doing some test runs of seeing how I could capture that vibe and essence for us to look at as a team and decide this is a good direction for us to go in, and this would work with the existing figure system that we had built with the Lincoln monsters and the Monsters of Legend. So this shows basically my paint test and the assembly of the cards, photographing that stuff and just looking at it collectively to know that that was the way we want to proceed with these. And then after doing so, like, it was really nice because then it gave us these additional pieces such as the cuffs for the wrist and then the chest fur piece, and it all came together really well. In doing so, I looked at, well, it would be really nice to look at what could be done with Monster of Legend Wave 2, and the fur piece came about at doing the Yeti and the Cyclops. One of the issues, though, is that this artwork needs to be redone in order for it to be set up for print. So it was me looking at the Cyclops and looking at the Yeti, and then redrawing all the line work, repainting the card art. It needs to be large, it needs to be 300 DPI, it needs to be factory ready in terms of it being printed from. And then so I went through each of these. The Cyclops was a little bit more straightforward, just basically doing some line art and then coloring it. But the Abominable Snowman, aka Yeti, I like both cards, the glow and the standard card, so I did sort of like a combination of the two. I wanted the graphic aspects of the original non-glow card, but I like the dark nighttime nature of the glow card and the color palette. So this is me painting alongside those, looking at those for reference and extending into the figure space so that there's enough detail behind it. And in the end, these were something that came together at the very end, only recently, and we were all very happy with the way they came out, and they definitely captured the essence of both of the figures and just read really well. So what we're gonna do is this stuff will be released on Backerkit in the next week. It will be available to backers now, and then it's a timed release, and you can basically add this stuff to your existing pledges. We'll be putting up instructions, sending out updates. In addition to that, we're also going to do some unique stuff, such as like this blue-haired Frankenstein and red-haired Drac that came from the original Mego lineup, so you'll be able to add that. And we'll send out full instructions for all this stuff, so definitely hold tight. Brian is now going to go into some history that ties into the Tomland stuff and into the Mad Monsters themselves. Thank you again for all your support.
Thanks, Todd. During the campaign, we did get a lot of questions about the Tomland monsters, and I thought it would be a great time to jump in and give the backstory. When Lincoln International folded its Hong Kong enterprises in the mid-1970s, another company, Tomland Toys, would appear and take up the mantle of creating wave after wave of copyright-infringing Mego knockoff action figures. And there was something really familiar about them. That's because Tomland would create a universe of characters using the same sculptor as Lincoln International. One of the first ranges was Creatures from Other Worlds, an action figure line meant to copy the popular Mego Star Trek toy line by adding some nondescript alien characters that kids could include in the play. Also, like Lincoln before it, Tomland created its own monster figures, but carefully avoided the classic characters to stand apart. The first wave of Tomland's famous monsters of legend appeared in 1977. The lineup included an eclectic mix of movie monsters such as the Cyclops from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, the Fly from The Fly, and the Morlock from The Time Machine. While these characters resembled their film counterparts, none of them were officially licensed. Even the Yeti, which from afar looks like an original creation, seems to have been modeled after a still of Ernest Borgnine from the early 1970s horror flop The Devil's Reign. For 1978, Tomland would create one of its most memorable lines, meant to cash in on Star Wars, with the Star Raiders, a series of 8-inch Mego-esque action figures that were obviously meant to confuse well-meaning grandparents everywhere. These characters were even sold in the Wish books alongside officially licensed Star Wars merchandise with names like Barroom Kooks, Alien Warriors, and Fighters from Afar. Tomland also repackaged all their existing figures under the Star Raiders banner with alien names. So the Morlock became Bico, and the Fly became Oov, making it a crazy challenge to collect all the Star Raiders on the card. The Star Raiders were so popular, it even spun off into a smaller range of figures called the Starroid Raiders. The late 1970s would see the Star Raiders re-released in a glow-in-the-dark wave, taking all the existing designs but now with updated card artwork, and each figure had glowing heads, hands, and feet. Also around this time, Tomland released 2 different toy lines, and this is where the connection to Lincoln Monsters comes in. The first was a PVC line just called Monsters of Legend. These are low-cost figures that utilized many of Tomland's existing characters, but added a few new faces, such as this weird Spider-Man parody and this awesome skeleton. But it also featured the return of the classic monsters, including Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Mummy, the Phantom of the Opera, and the Hunchback of Notre Dame. While the style is highly cartoonish, it is very obvious that these were made by the same person who created the Lincoln International monster designs. The Wolfman's got his gleeful expression, the Mummy has his star-like eyes. These are all homages to these figures and definitely gives it a family vibe. However, even more interesting was the return of the 8-inch famous Monsters of Legend in glow-in-the-dark format, which not only saw the first wave re-released with new card artwork and glow-in-the-dark parts, but also a second wave was released featuring new renditions of Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, and the Wolfman. These figures featured new head sculpts that again were highly stylized variations that still held the same character traits as the original Lincoln monsters. Granted, the head paints and the outfits are even cruder than before. This, however, gives the figures a charm all their own, in my opinion. As a collector and a fan, I'm really excited we got the Tomlands into this Kickstarter because, to me, they're really an important part of this story.
We have a lot of interesting things to share. I hope you'll take a look or maybe join our Lincoln Monster Club on Facebook. Thank you to everyone who has supported this, even if you liked and shared it. We really appreciate it. This is a mad scientist dream come true.